I have a few. We'll try to get them all in this round. But I appreciate again just your answers and some of my colleagues who already asked questions that I had. So I guess I'm just a little confused on the addition of the citywide round. So the first 20% of seats at each school will go to the highest ranking students. Can you talk to me about how that operationally will happen? So I can imagine that a bunch of kids will rank BLS as their first choice. I don't understand why BLA is the best, but when when folks rank their first choice, and presumably it's more in one school than the other, how will that get distributed equitably, or will it?
Sure. So the proposal for the citywide round is that the first 20% of seats at each of the 3 schools would be filled by the highest performing students that ranked that school first across the city. So essentially that means every student who ranks BLS first would get rank ordered from their composite score highest to lowest, and the first, if there are, I think it's roughly like 95 seats would be the top 20% at BLS. So the first, in this hypothetical example, 95 highest scoring students who ranked BLS first would receive an invitation to BLS. That would be repeated for BLA and O'Brien. So the first 20% of seats at each of the 3 schools is filled with the highest ranking students. The students who do not receive an invitation in the citywide round would then be considered within their socioeconomic tier for the remaining 80% of seats in each of the 3 schools. Did that help?
So just to further clarify, so first 95 seats at BLS, right? And then
roughly,
yeah. Okay. And then it would automatically go to the kids who ranked BLA first for whatever seats that they have, or would you continue to fill it in the BLS category?
So students, we fill seats based on student preference. Because we want to ensure that as many students are getting their first choice school as possible. So, I don't know, Colin, do you want to?
So it's basically, if you had 300 students who were the highest scoring composite scores, we would go kid by kid in their first choice. So if the first 10 picked BLS, and the next 10 picked O'Brien, then that would fill 10 of BLS's seats and 10 of O'Brien's seats. Till we exhaust the 95 seats at BLS, the 85 or so, 80 seats at BLA, and then it's a much smaller number, probably like 45-ish at O'Brien, because they have such a small number of 7th to 8th.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You must have spent time in classroom, so thank you. I appreciate it. Some of the policy impacts on invitations within the race and ethnicity components. So I'd love to see in the appendix, and there's a lot of information in the appendix, so I appreciate you all including that as well. It looks like invites went up in East Boston, which is a historically Latinx community. Do we foresee, or what are the projections for invitations under the proposed recommendations, and will it have any impact, especially on the Latinx community in East Boston?
So the data in the appendix doesn't actually include the neighborhood data for the simulations, so we can certainly follow up and provide that. I think what you can see from slide 18 with the 3 maps of the city does show that the policy has moved to geographic representation that is more similar to the city than what is before, but I don't have the specific answer in front of me.
Okay. But you have done some simulations under this new recommended policy and what that might mean for various demographic groups like race and ethnicity.
Yes.
Okay, great. Through the chair, if we could have that. Thank you. School-based points, thank you for removing it. It was something that was playing out real time in my district, and it really was a poor proxy for individual socioeconomic status need. No better example than a single mom who just happened to be a waitress and has a really great apartment in the North End, and her daughter went to the Elliott School, and so she really felt penalized for things that were beyond her control, and so I do appreciate that and just want to say thank you. Councilor Fitzgerald already asked my question for considering number of applicants per tier. That was something that Charlestown parents have been asking for in particular since 2023. I have an email up from Kathleen Charter-Bourne. I just want to publicly thank her for her advocacy. There was a question about invitations not being fulfilled or kids not coming through or not actually realizing their attendance at these schools. So there would be invitations that went out per tier. Some would go unanswered, or some kids would say, no, thank you, I have other options. There was a discussion about potentially rolling over those invitations. I guess, can you talk about any conversations around that, whether that was considered?
The only thing I can think of is that they're talking, that it's in connection to the wait lists. So what basically happens is we don't have we can use past data to predict what we think the yield will be of the number of invites we send and the number who accept the invitation to each of the schools, but it's not a hard science. And there have been years where the invitations have been, we send them out and then the yield's been slightly lower, and then of late the yield has been very high. And it's actually caused situations in all 3 exam schools of class size issues, particularly in the 7th and 8th. So the way that the schools do it now is we really try to do as many of the invites up front rather than form a wait list and draw from the wait list. If they're able to draw, they will, but if it's going to put them over in class sizes, then they won't. That's slightly different than what had been before, which was, they would take fewer applicants and then go to the wait list. So it's really like a catch-22, right? Like it doesn't, either one, it's a half dozen of one. Our preference is for them to invite as many students, get them settled up front as possible, and then if there happens to be a few seats left that is in accordance with the class size, they can pull from the wait list. But we have very high yields year to year in each of these exam schools.
Okay, thank you. And one last point that I will make has to do with DCF. I had a parent reach out to us that said that they had a child in foster care, and they had just gotten off of the DCF care list and will no longer be receiving those bonus points. I guess I was just suggest having a look back for any kid that has been in foster care within the last year to consider giving them those points, because they still come with certain challenges. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Coletta Zapata. Next up, we have Councilor Braden. You have the floor.